On a freezing winter night in December 1994, dispatch operators received a report that made no sense. A train had entered the Northern Mountain Tunnel outside the city at 11:42 p.m., but according to official records, that train disappeared 30 years ago. Back in 1964, Train 702 departed carrying passengers, workers, and families heading through a remote route crossing dense forests and isolated mountains. Witnesses remembered thick fog covering the tracks that night. Then, without warning, radio communications stopped. Search teams spent weeks scanning every mile of railway. Helicopters flew over valleys. Rescue workers searched frozen rivers and abandoned stations. Yet Train 702 simply vanished. No wreckage, no bodies, no explanation. For decades, the case slowly became an urban legend. Retired conductors whispered strange stories about hearing distant train whistles in empty stations long after midnight. Security staff claimed lights sometimes moved across abandoned tracks where no trains operated anymore. Then came the transmission. 30 years later, an emergency radio signal suddenly interrupted dispatch frequencies. At first, there was only static. Then, a frightened voice repeated one sentence. "Please tell me, what year is this?" Operators froze, because the voice belonged to Train 702's conductor. Investigators rushed to the old Northern Rail Tunnel. Surveillance cameras captured something emerging through thick fog. A train. Old steel, rusted windows, faded markings. Train 702. Authorities expected empty cars. Instead, they found luggage untouched, half-finished meals, open newspapers still sitting on seats, as if everyone had disappeared only moments ago. Then, investigators discovered something that was never released publicly. Inside one passenger compartment, a small tape recorder was still running. The final audio contained distant breathing, metal groaning, and a child's voice whispering, "Don't look outside the window." The recording ended, because according to recovered dispatch logs, for exactly 7 minutes inside that tunnel, Train 702 had traveled somewhere no railway map had ever recorded.